pointed. This shit gon' be rated or restricted. You see this bullet hole in my neck? It's self-inflicted. Dr. Slap.
Okay. So, I saw Prometheus. Finally, I've been wanting to see it for a while now, and I went out and I saw it today, and it wasn't good. I really didn't want to say that. Like, when I went to go see the movie, I was like, oh, it's a movie I want to see. Woo! Sci-fi, alien predecessor, whatever. And it was a lot like an alien movie, in the sense that they were like, oh, it's an expedition of so many people, and they go to the planet, and everybody dies. But there's alright. First of all, the movie was really beautiful looking. Very well shot. Everything looked really good. All the special effects were fantastic. And that's what kind of pisses me off most about this movie, is that when I think of an alien movie, sure, I think of special effects. At least when I think of the alien movies that I enjoyed, which would be Alien and Aliens. Alien 3 I didn't really like that much. Alien Resurrection I didn't really like that much. But Alien and Aliens, those two movies, I liked the special effects were great in those movies, sure. But the thing that was most impressive about the movies wasn't the fact that it looked good, it was the fact that it used techniques to make you feel like this was like a really dangerous situation to be in, especially the first one. In this movie, in Prometheus, it's like they were like, fuck it, and just made it really pretty looking and then didn't deliver on the actual plot. The plot is really fucked up, and I don't understand what the fuck is going on half the time in the movie. They're like, oh, okay. Well, okay. It starts out like with archaeological diggings, and they're like, look, we found all this shit. They're like matching up these ancient paintings from various groups of people, like the Egyptians and so on and so forth. And they're like, oh, they all have the same. They all have this one picture in common. It's like some guy standing and going like, look at these 3 nebulae or whatever in the sky. So everyone, like, these geologists take this as like huge significance. They're like, oh my god, they all pointed these 4 dots, which represents this nebulae, blah blah blah. Something has to be going on there. I'm just like, so what? Like, that's what fucking, they used to draw pictures of animals in the sky, connecting stars, like, who, like, connect the dots, who the fuck cares? They investigate the star system, or nebulae, or galaxy, whatever the fuck, and they find that there's a planet that's, or not even a planet, it's like a moon of a planet that can sustain life. How do they know that? Who the fuck knows? Maybe a drone. I don't know. So, and then they get there, and then they say that the atmosphere is like CO. It's like fucking carbon monoxide or something. And you're just sitting there like, how the fuck is that a planet that can sustain life? If it's like one of the people was like, one of the people on the ship literally was like, oh, well, if it's like, it's exactly like our planet if you think that, like, sucking an exhaust pipe is is like normally what we do on Earth. And I'm like, how the fuck does that That's not a planet that can sustain life if the fucking air is poisonous. I don't fuck. Like, how the fuck does that make sense? So they land, and oh, by the way, before I even continue, there's no military contingent with them, or at least it doesn't seem like there is. It's Charlize Theron's character, who is literally there for no reason, as far as I could tell. She was there because all I know is that she's loosely connected with the corporation that's funding the expedition. Very loosely, until the end of the movie that you find out. But I don't know why she's there really, because at first it seems like she's the commander, but no, they already have it. They have a captain, the captain of the ship, who's a separate character. She's just there. Like, she's like, oh, I just tagged along, I guess. She's not a scientist. It doesn't appear that she's a scientist. She just... Like, she's, at times, she seems like she's, like, controlling. She's the mission overseer, or something. And then, at other times, it seems like she has no power whatsoever. Like, she's just there to be, like, to be a pretty blonde girl. And I don't understand why she's there most of the time, other than the fact that her presence justifies this weird this room on the ship that they have. That's like her personal suite, and it has like this grand piano, and it's like it has all these fixins. Like she has a bunch of booze, and she has a medical pod that she apparently takes every. She's like, they're like, wow, this is really advanced shit that you have in your captain's room. Even though I don't fucking know what you'd call it. Maybe like the girls' suite. I don't know. This is really like advanced equipment that you have up here, and she's just like, well, I always like to travel and be safe. Like, I always like to be safe. Okay. I just don't understand why she's there. And I don't get what her role is in this squad of people. So, okay, you got that. And that's quizzical, but whatever. So they go to the moon that can totally habitable, despite the fact that the air is poisonous. That was that one fucking thing that we forgot to mention. And then they go and they find this dome, I guess it is. It's like a big dome surrounded by a dirt wall. And then they go in, they start poking around, and they find this they find jars in a room, and they're like, oh, jars, poke them or something. But actually, the funniest part is at some point, these dudes, the two guys that are in the squad. It's one guy, and he has these things that he throws up in the air, and they go and they map out the entire facility. Basically, they just map out the facility, and they're like, yeah, so we could just, it's making a map for us, and blah blah. And then they start going, and then after things start getting weird, which is inevitable because it's one of these movies where things start getting weird, and the guy who initially threw those things up is like, fuck, I'm out of here, runs, and some other guy follows him, and then it cuts from the main team who are looking at the jars in the room, and it goes to these two guys who broke off from the original group, and they were like, we're initially like, let's get the fuck out of here, which seemed like a reasonable rationale before, and they're just walking around the fucking facility. They're still there. I don't know why. They wanted to leave, right? they had that dude was the guy who threw up the things and mapped out the entire facility. He knows where the exit is, but they're still there for some reason. They're still poking around. They're still like looking at shit. And then when there's like this sandstorm coming in, and the captain's like, "Well, there's a storm coming, so you guys should probably come back." And then Charlize Theron gets on the horn, and she's like, "If you're not back in 15 minutes, I'm totally shutting those doors, okay?" And so they all start going like, "Shit, we're gonna get locked down to the ship. Let's get the fuck out of here." And Michael Fassbender, who's like he's the synthetic, like Bishop from the second one, and the one from the first one who was the first alien who went crazy and started like fucking shit up. So Michael Fassbender takes one of the jars without, I don't think anybody knows that he did, and they go back to the ship as fast as they possibly can, and they get back there, and they found a head in the ruins, or whatever you want to call it. The head of one of the what they call the engineers or whatever. Apparently, these are aliens that created or engineered the existence of people, us. So they bring that back, and then they fuck with the head. They're just like, I don't understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to reanimate the head with electricity. I think the exact words from the protagonist, she's the main character in the movie. She's a scientist, and she's like, "Well, why don't we just try and trick the nervous system into thinking it's alive with electric shock or something?" Simple enough, I guess. And the doctor's like, "Yeah, that's a good idea. Just shove a needle in there and electrocute it." Okay. So they do that, and then the fucking head explodes. Bullshit. Everything's effed. Might as well just fucking... And the guy who's the protagonist's boyfriend gets all mopey and shit because they were gonna... Like, he was expecting to find live aliens. They didn't find live aliens. Cry. So that what he wanted to do was talk to the aliens and then figure out why the aliens created us. And Michael Fassbender sees him in this mopey little state, and he's just like, "Why are you so upset?" Like, "Well, we're gonna find the creators of our race, and we're gonna talk to them, and then they find out that blah." Michael Fassbender says something effective like, "Well, you guys created me, basically. Your race created synthetics. Why did you do that?" And the guy's like, "Oh, we just did it because we could. Like, there's no fucking reason behind it, man. It's just because we want to make robots and shit." And Michael Fassbender's just like, "Well, what if that was the whole reason they made you? Is that really something you'd want to know?" And that question is never really answered, so he just kind of, I guess it's just kind of glossed over. So okay. And then Michael Fassbender takes one of the jars that has this like black ooze in it, like takes like a little bit of it and puts it in the guy's drink, who he's talking to, the mopey guy. Puts it in his drink and gives him the drink, and he drinks it, and then like you're sitting there the entire time like, well, why did he do that? Was he mad? Like, did he have like a moment of synthetic emotion where he was just like, "Oh, fuck this guy, dude, like, he's a dick," and then just like gave him some fucking poison that would kill him? Or was he ordered to do it by, because the guy who's funding the whole thing is like Peter Whalen is the guy, I believe his name is. He's a really rich guy, and his company is funding this expedition. And the entire time it seems like David, Michael Fassbender's synthetic character, is taking orders from the corporation. So when Michael Fassbender intentionally infects one of the other crew members, it's hard to discern why he did it. Like, did Did he just get fucking pissed? Can he get pissed? Is that possible? Did someone order him to do that to see what would happen to the host? And why? Like, just why would... Obviously, it's dangerous. I mean, you could have tested it or something. You could have brought it to a lab and fucking... They're scientists. They're scientists on board this ship. Why do that? Not important. Anyway. So after all that, they go back to the ship, or I'm sorry, the installation on the planet, which is eventually found out that it's a ship. It's it's the ship of the engineers, the race that created our race, who, by the way, are shown to be giants. They're giant. They're giants with bald heads, milky white skin, and just jacked all fucking bejesus. They're huge. And when they bring back the sample, the head of one of them, that they try and reanimate and fail doing because it blows up the head, they find out that the engineers are genetically the same as people. I mean, like, an exact match. Not like, oh, there are a few fucking genes away or something. Like, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. But one thing I do know is that if it's genetically the same, then it's the same thing. It's the same. It's not like... Again, not a scientist, not a biologist, but I've been to a few biology classes, and from what I gleaned from those experiences is that if it's genetically the same, then you're dealing with the same exact species. But they're not. They're obviously not. So, what the fuck? Okay. The old guy who smuggled himself aboard the ship or something. Oh my god. Okay. They go back. I forget what the fuck they were there for. Alright. They go back with the guy who drank the shitty shit. Go back to... Oh, that's right. Okay. They go back to get the other guys who they left behind, because I've met those guys I was talking about who were like, oh, let's fucking leave, let's go, before everyone else. Those two guys, they were still there, and they're like they're just, it shows them like just basically knocking around this place, not knowing what the fuck is going on. They were trapped because of the sandstorm that everybody escaped, except for them. So they're down there and they're just like fucking around, basically looking at shit. And then they go back to the room where all the jars were. And there's black ooze everywhere because it started leaking out. So they're just like just walking around like, oh, this is pretty fucked up, man. And then like one of these the snake thing comes out of the black ooze, and one of the guys is just like, oh my god, it's beautiful, and you're just like, dude, you don't know what the fuck this thing is. Get away from it. Get the fuck away from it. And he's like going towards this thing, like egging it on, like, oh yeah, come on, it's so beautiful. And the other guy's behind him, like, do we want to do this? This seems pretty fucked up. And the thing latches onto his arm, and he's like, oh, it's strong. Ooh, it's powerful. And then it starts wrapping itself around his arm, and he's like, okay, get it off, like seriously, get it off now because it hurts. And the other guy starts sawing away at it, like, oh my god. And then he cuts it, and then the blood comes out on his or whatever. It's fluid, whatever it is. It sprays all over his helmet and starts melting it because I guess it has acidic blood like the other aliens did from the other movies. I don't know how whatever. So they're doing that, and it sprays all over the guy, and he's like, "Oh shit!" Oh, and he like falls in the black ooze. Obviously, he's done for. The thing breaks the other guy's arm, slides into his suit, and just like mouth fucks him. Like literally, just goes in his mouth and just starts like fucking his throat. So they're both dead. And so when the crew comes back to get him, obviously they're dead, and they're like, "Oh shit, this isn't good." But not only that, they have the guy who sampled the black ooze with them, and he's getting sick. He's showing symptoms of some kind of fucked up thing. He's sick. So they're like, "Okay, we gotta get the fuck out of here. All right, blah blah blah. Let's just leave." So they all run back to the ship. And the captain comes out and he's like, "Oh, we gotta get this guy medical attention, blah, blah." And Charlize Theron comes out and she's like, "No." She's like a flamethrower. "No, I'm gonna fucking set this guy on fire. You guys can come in, but he can't." Which seems kind of logical to me because he was experiencing weird symptoms at that point. So the guy kind of breaks away from everybody. The infected guy, and he's like, "You're right, just kill me, get it over with." So she sets him on fire. They all go back in the ship. Now, what I failed to mention, that during between the time that he ingested the stuff and the time that he started exhibiting symptoms of some kind of weird shit, the main character in him fucked. So it cuts to the main character is like, she was like, no, don't kill her, crying, all that shit. She wakes up in the med bay, and there's Michael Fassbender, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, you're pregnant." 3 months pregnant. And she's sitting there like, "That's fucking impossible. I can't have children. It's established before that she can't have children." And he's like, "No, you're with child." Okay? And keep in mind, they fucked like maybe 11 hours before this. So, she's 3 months pregnant with an alien baby. Or something. And she's like, "Oh god, I need to get this fucking thing out of me. This is weird. This is not natural." Ugh. So she like runs, and she's like hitting all the crew members who are trying to restrain her because they think she's fucking crazy. And she goes to the med bay, the med pod that's in Charlize Theron's room. And she hits buttons, and it's like, what procedure do you need performed? And she's like, "I need a cesarean section." And the pod's just like, "Oh, I'm sorry. This pod has been calibrated for male patients only." This is the med pod that's in Charlize Theron's room. Now, I don't know if you know Charlize Theron, but she's the girl. She's a woman. She's a female. Now, my friend in the theater was like, "Well, it's probably for the old guy who they smuggled aboard." And I was like, "I don't know about that, because, I mean, it's possible. That's possible. But it just seems weird. Like, it's never mentioned that he ever is in need of constant surgical, like, attention. So it's like, he's old, sure, but that doesn't mean that he needs to, like, go in and get his organs rearranged every 5 seconds. It just doesn't, it didn't make any sense to me. But she gets in anyway, and the pod's just like, okay. Like, it's like, the pod, which is highly advanced technology, just kind of chalks up the fact that she's a woman, and despite that it's calibrated for a man, and So the thing starts the things sprays some numbing agent on her womb, I guess, and starts cutting her open with a laser. And meanwhile, she's just sticking anesthetic into her leg, oh my god, why the fuck is this? And you're just sitting there what the fuck? Wouldn't it knock you out for something like that? Completely, so you wouldn't feel it? And so it cuts her open, pulls out the thing, and it's sitting there and she's just oh god, oh fuck. And the thing starts stapling her stomach. All across her stomach, and then it's done. It's okay, you're good. I just cut through some pretty important shit. But 10 staples, that's good. No stitches or anything like that, just 10 crudely fashioned hardware staples. You're good to go, lady. Don't try any gymnastics, because your intestines will fall out. Just staple your fucking flesh together like it's a fucking 5th grade art project. So she gets out, and she's obviously in immense amounts of pain. At least I could only imagine that she's in huge, and all the while she's sticking herself with fucking anesthetics, and she's because God only knows what the fuck it felt like being conscious through that whole thing, but okay. So she's all stabled up. They all go again back to the fucking ruin on the planet, and okay. So it's Michael Fassbender. It's the old guy who they smuggled with them, who wants to go see the engineer, because Michael Fassbender discovered one last engineer who was alive in some cryostasis or whatever the fuck. And the old guy wants to talk to him, be like, why did you create us, blah blah blah. So they all go, and they get there. They waken the thing from cryostasis. The girl's there too, with the staples in their stomach. Don't know why. And Michael Fassbender starts talking to it in its language that he studied, I guess. Because in the beginning he's shown studying all these kind of different languages because everyone's in cryosleep and he's not, because he's a synthetic, so he's just occupying his time, I suppose. And he starts talking to the thing, and then the thing immediately just rips his fucking head off and just starts basically trying to kill everything in sight. And meanwhile, while this is happening, the captain, who has a whole the guy in the beginning who lifted up the balls that mapped everything out, he has a direct picture of that. So now he's finally looking at it and going oh my god, it's a fucking ship. And I'm just sitting there you should have fucking figured that out a long fucking time ago, dude. Way behind the curve. Alright? So basically at that point everyone dies. The ship starts, the thing that Michael Fassbender awoke and is okay, time to do what I was going to do in the first place. He was apparently going to their plan was to take all these vials to Earth and kill everyone on Earth, because that's what they thought, oh, well, that whole human race thing was a huge fucking disappointment, so let's go and wipe it off the face of the Earth. So he starts the spaceship. It rises out of the thing, out of the ground, basically. And the captain's well, the only thing we can do is crash our ship directly into their ship, and then bring it down that way. And Charlize Theron is fuck this, and then runs to an escape pod or whatever, which is fucking hilarious, because her with all the fixins that I was talking about before, that's a fucking escape pod. Fuck. That's a fucking escape pod. So, but she doesn't go to that. She goes to another escape pod, which is basically the size of her, and then gets shot off. And then then her room falls off the ship too, for reasons that I can't even begin to fucking comprehend, because no one's inside of it. And I guess they jettison all the escape pods at once, but that still doesn't really make sense to me, because Charlize Theron was in a smaller escape pod where there was like 4 other ones like beside her, and hers was the only one that popped off. So I don't know why her suite just fell off the ship, but it did. And so the captain takes his remaining crew and crashes it right in the fucking alien ship, the engineer ship. The engineer ship falls down, starts rolling. The protagonist and Charlize Theron are the only ones outside of the ship. They start running away from the thing. Theron dies, gets squished. And then the other girl kind of just lives because of a rock that stopped the thing miraculously. And she goes back onto the suite, Charlize Theron's suite, which detached from the ship as a whole, again for some reason. And the thing is that the alien that she pulled out of herself with the pod is still in there, and it's bigger now. It's grown within however long it took for that fucking to take. And I guess that's why Charlize Theron didn't go in there, but then again, how the fuck would she know it was in there in the first place? So, basically Fassbender, who's still alive, his head's detached, but he's still alive because he's a synthetic, is communicating with the main character by radio, and he's like, "Oh my god, it's coming for you," and she's like, "What?" And then the engineer, who was in the ship, piloting the huge fucking engineer ship, is running after her into the suite thing, Charlize Theron's suite. And he's coming after her, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill you now, fuck!" He doesn't say that because he can't speak English. But she opens the door that the pod is behind, the health pod, or the medical pod, and then the gigantic, alien thing, it looked like a cephalopod to me, but I don't fucking know. It starts attacking it. And the engineer and the fucking the alien cephalopod thing are fighting. She gets the hell out of there. And then the alien thing has this dick that just comes out of the if this was the alien, my 2 hands are the alien limbs there's this thing that kind of comes out the center of it like this like a fucking. And it just sticks right into the engineer's mouth and just starts again, face-fucking him. It face-fucked him. And then at the end of the movie where it's Michael Fassbender and the girl and they fly off to the engineer's home planet for... God, again, why the fuck would you go there? I guess they're in one of the engineer ships when they leave, so I guess she's planning to drop the ooze on them or something. I don't know. But... at the end of the movie, you see the engineer that tried to kill the main character. It's laying down. It's whoa, and then at the very end, a xenomorph pops out of its chest, and that was the movie. Again, it was very pretty. It was very well shot. Lots of good shots. Lots of good establishing shots. Lots of good. The world seemed full, but the plot was so convoluted and up its own ass that I couldn't fucking justify a lot of the things that I saw in the movie. I couldn't connect it back to something else that I'd seen in the movie. Everything was just meh. And one of the other things was that in the beginning, it shows one of the engineers on the planet. And he, for some reason, takes a cup of the black ooze and he gulps it down, and it starts destroying him. It starts immediately killing him. But as the movie progressed, the guy who took a shot of the stuff that Michael Fassbender snuck in his drink, he was starting to get those symptoms, Charlize Theron sets him on fire with a flamethrower, and then later they go back to him, his charred corpse or whatever. It gets up and starts like it's like a fucking flesh-eating zombies from outer space. Like he was a zombie at that point, and he was like beating the fuck out of the crew members, with killing them with his bare hands. And you're sitting there like, how? What? Like, I didn't know it. What? It's supposed to fucking no. Like the inconsistency of what the Black Ooze is supposed to do. I don't know what the fuck it's supposed to do. And there was another weird thing where they had Guy Pearce is the head of the corporation. He's the old guy. Guy Pearce is like maybe 40 years old. He's not that old. So they had to make him look old. And I'm like sitting there like, what the fuck did you cast a young guy to be an old guy? Like, you'd think like, oh, they're gonna flash back to a point where he was younger. No, it never happened. It never fucking happened. It was just him in old people makeup for the whole movie. And you're just like, why didn't you just cast an old guy? I don't... So that's my review. It was pretty, but it sucked. I just like... I think that it could have been a lot better. They just needed to like hash out some of the plot problems in the script, and then it would have been fine. Dialogue was fine for the most part. It's just that it was like the plot was incoherent. Okay, that's what I thought. I was very disappointed.